Hello, it's Thursday, September 14th, 2017, and as of this recording, I'm still depressed, but I'm not dead. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I appreciate each and every one of you taking time out of your busy days to download and listen to the show. I'll be honest, my depressed mind tells me that there's no reason for anybody to listen, but some reason you guys do, and I appreciate it. I am humbled by those who listen, more so by those who reach out to me, either email or on Twitter or text or whatnot. Yeah, so those of you who don't know, let me tell you how you can do those things to get a hold of me. You can reach me, you can write me an email at jamoalki@gmail.com, facebook.com/jamoalki, on Twitter @jamoalki, www.jamoalki.info. That's JAMOALKI. And there's also that Google phone number that you can text me on. That's 248-648-1419. Couple little short topics to get to on the show today. Not sure how it's going to all come together, but I never am. So let's just get into it, huh? So I had a therapy appointment yesterday with Alex, and that's kind of what I want to talk about for the most part today, a couple other little things. And it's interesting to me how last week's session and this week's session kind of tie together. If you remember, last week we talked about my girls pretty much the entire time, and that was kind of emotional for me. I held back the tears. I didn't want to cry for whatever reason in the session. I guess I haven't totally bought in yet to the idea of that safe space. I don't know. But, we talked about my girls and missing them and what I think they're missing and how, what I wish I could be doing, what their views of me being in Minnesota might be and all that. And it was pretty emotional. And I was sad. I told Alex I was sad. I didn't let on that I was going to cry. But as you all know, Alex may be listening to the show, so there you go, Alex, a little tidbit for you. And then this week, I don't know how we got into it. He had given me some homework from the previous session to think about things that I could remember, be it from injuries, accidents, good things, bad things, whatever. Try to replay thoughts in my head. Specifically focusing on emotion to see, what emotions came from such an experience. Somehow we got onto the topic of death and people who have died in my life. And we started walking through those. And my first experience with death that I remember is when my grandpa, my dad's dad, died in 1982. And I was about 9 then, I guess. And the only thing I really remember from that, two things, was that Dad came home from work early one day, which was weird. And then there was an open casket wake that we went to. And I remember walking into the room and looking down the far end of the room. And, there was my grandpa in the casket. And I remember thinking how weird it was that they would have a life-size doll of my grandpa laying up in the front of the room. Clearly not understanding what a wake was or what was going on. And then I remember being afraid to kind of go up to him when it was made clear to me that, no, that wasn't some kind of doll. That was my actual grandpa. But I don't remember crying. I'm sure my mom and dad, if I asked them, would say, yeah, you cried. And that's kind of a weird conversation for me to have, but next time I see them, I have some questions to ask them about different things. And then from there, I had an uncle die in 1984, and I don't remember crying for that. It was an uncle who I really didn't get to know very well. So I've never really thought about that again. And then we get into the 90s. In 92, my dad's mom died. This is while I was in college. And I remember getting a phone call from my dad to let me know that she had died. And I remember not knowing what to say on the phone. I didn't know, do I say I'm sorry? Do I say, I had no idea what to say. I think it was just okay. And I distinctly remember from that event that I did not cry. I know that for certain. And, that's always stuck out to me that, this was a woman who I did know. We didn't see grandmas and grandpas all that frequently, maybe 4 or 5 times a year. And maybe a little bit more than that, but it wasn't very often. It was an event to go to grandmas and grandpas. We'd go Christmas Eve or things like that. But, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. In fall of 1990, so my freshman year in college, a friend of mine who had been a friend since grade school, I can remember at least as far back as 5th grade, probably. His name was Eric, and, we did stuff together. We went to movies, we hung out, we slept over. He introduced me to Ozzy Osbourne on MTV. I'll be honest, I don't remember what the dynamic was between our parents, but when I was 12 and we moved, Eric's family bought our house, and we had a fairly nice house on a big acre of land, and I guess his dad just loved it. And at once upon a time, he had said, if you ever move, let me know. And we were moving, so we let him know, and they bought the house. And Eric and I stayed in contact for a couple of years after that, writing letters, and he would send me tapes of music. He'd chit-chat about something, and then he'd play a song, and then chit-chat and play a song. And summers we would go back to the area, which is where grandparents were and uncles and friends and things like that. And I'd see him then. But then in 88, we moved again, and I don't remember interacting with Eric really again. And again, this is what I remember. It may not line up with fact, but if it's what I remember, then it is my fact for now. And so that fall of 1990, he was in a car accident. His parents said that he had an aneurysm, and he drove into a bridge abutment and died. And my parents had to tell me about this, and I don't remember a thing about my reaction to that. I don't remember really anything about that. The only thing I remember from that whole, a couple things, I guess. The whole scenario was for about 4 or 5 years after that, I would put his initials on all my tennis shoes that I would buy and wear. And I'll be honest, I when I think of it today, it just seems like the thing to do. But at that time, I'm sure it was more important than that. And I remember going out that following summer to go visit his grave, which is what you do in our family. And just remembering, I was surprised at how big his gravestone was and how shiny it was. But through all of that, I don't remember crying over that. Clearly, it was a situation that moved me enough to want to remember him with the initials. And I kept for a long time, there was a, gosh, I don't know, it's not a speech at a funeral. But another friend of his stood up and talked about Eric for a while, and that had been, pre-planned, and he had written it out, and so it was typed out and given to everybody. And I remember I kept that for a good long time, and I had a picture of him in a 8x10 frame, I think it was, maybe 5x7, and I kept that prominent for a good long while as well. But again, so, all these things, but I don't remember the emotions tied up with that. So then, like I said, in 92, my grandma died, and I didn't have any kind of reaction with that. 95, my other grandmother died, and I'll be honest, I don't even remember that, much less what my emotional reaction was to that. In 96, so when I was 23, my grandpa, my mom's dad, died, the last of my grandparents, and he had been sick for a while and was in the hospital. And I remember going out to Massachusetts to visit him in the hospital with my girlfriend at the time. And we went into the hospital room, and I think I probably tried feeding him a little bit, but he was so emaciated and didn't look at all like my grandpa. And, he was thin and pale. As an Italian man, he was pale, which was shocking. And we stayed in there for a little bit. And then what I remember is kind of, that feeling when you're about to cry and you're trying to hold it back and your nose is kind of starting to run and your eyes are welling up and you're kind of fighting to hold it all back. And you get that kind of burning sensation, like between your nose and your eyes, kind of like that's the linchpin point where if that fails, then everything starts going. And I remember grabbing my girlfriend's hand and taking her outside of the room and down the hall. And I remember crying specifically over that, but I don't remember anything else. I don't remember if we went back into the room. I don't remember if her and I had a conversation about what was going on. I don't remember leaving the hospital. And I'll be honest, I don't remember the conversation when he actually passed. And so I have to assume that I didn't cry for that either. And then the laundry list goes on, another uncle in 98, uncle in 94 that I forgot about, another mom's brother in 07, my dad's brother in 16, just a few years ago, just last year. All of these deaths I don't remember crying about or really even having an emotional response to. And, I don't know what all this means. Am I avoiding my feelings? Am I kind of sociopathic in some ways that I just don't have the feelings? I don't know. It's strange that I could be so emotional about talking about my girls, and clearly was so emotional back in 96 when my grandpa was in the hospital. And some of that may be with him that I saw it. He was there in front of me, and he was clearly sick, and sick enough that he wasn't going to be leaving the hospital, or if he was, it was probably going to be a hospice kind of situation. And that clearly got to me. I clearly cried. But in all these other situations, nothing. In some cases, not even remembering the situation, the time, the conversation that told me about their passing. And so I'm trying to think about that and trying to figure out what really that's about. I know as a kid, I was very empathetic, and I know I was very emotional about different things. Heck, I remember in the 92 Olympics, maybe that was what it was. There was I think it was a 400 sprint, and a runner got a leg cramp and fell to the ground, and his dad came out of the stands and, helped him walk, the rest of the way, letting him go just at the end so he could cross the finish line on his own. And I remember that story over and over again. That would make me cry. But not the death of my grandparents, not the death of my best friend. So yeah, I don't know what that means. And I don't, to be honest, I don't know where to go to start thinking about how to parse that out. And I guess my guess is Alex and I are going to revisit this next week, and hopefully he's got some ideas, and we'll see. Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know if I mentioned it on the show, but I talked to Alex about the possibility of recording a session with him and kind of editing it down to some, half-hour nugget of goodness. And I mentioned that to him last week, and he said he'd have to check, and my idea was turned down. The company is not comfortable with the idea. He said they are really ultra-conservative and would rather err on the side of what's safe for them. So I guess I'll obviously I have to abide by that openly. I don't know if I could record one in secret and put it on the show here. And not that I want to expose, my deepest, darkest confessions in therapy, but I think I would like to kind of have, maybe even if it's just like 10 minutes of back and forth, as a way of an example to folks out there who might be listening who are not in favor of going to talk therapy, and just as a way to say, hey, look, I'm in talk therapy. Here's a snippet of what a typical session is like. And, I wish I could do this and have a good quality sound. But we'll see. I may just let it go. It may be, I don't want to be all cloak and dagger about it and whatnot. But, I thought that might have been a good idea, something that could be valuable to listeners out there. Something else I wanted to talk about, or at least bring up, is a new podcast that I started listening to. It's The Depression Files by Al Levin. I hope I said his name right. I've seen it written down tons of times, Levin. Only heard him say it once, and I've already got it jumbled up in my head. But he's a guy who he's local to me here. We've never actually met. We've communicated on Twitter, and he actually interviewed me for his show over Skype. And that's what his show is going to be. It's going to be him talking with men specifically who deal with depression and kind of their story, and kind of just a way of getting more voices out there. And the first episode was fantastic. I really recommend that you guys listen to it. And hopefully you'll hear my dulcet tones on there one day. And I would like to get him on this show to have him explain that a little bit more. He's a really great guy. He's a fascinating guy. And that's Al Levin, Levin. The Depression Files is the name of the podcast. There's just 2 episodes as of yet. One is a little teaser, and then 2 is his first interview. So check that out. Just don't leave me behind, please. Thank you. And another friend of the show, Katie down in Australia. I wonder, Katie, do you say up in America or what? I mean, down in Australia maybe sounds condescending. Let me know about that. But she just had a fantastic blog post about decision making. And so she was talking about how difficult or the differences in decision making for her when she's depressed versus when she's moving into mania, hypomania, things like that. And like all her other posts, it's just a fantastic read. I recommend you guys check it out. She's at thecolorofmadness.blogspot.com. And because she's from down under, color is COLOUR. So check her out and check out that post. And reading that got me thinking about my difficulties making decisions pretty much any time. But specifically about this show and how I make decisions as to what I'm going to speak about when I sit down to talk. And really how, my forgetfulness kind of bites me in the butt every time. When I was leaving therapy yesterday, I had probably 4 ideas of, hey, this is what I want to talk about. I'm going to put this all together. Maybe I have to split it up into 2 and 2, but these are the things I want to talk about. Got home, sat down, and couldn't recall a single one of them. But then, when I get an idea, like I had this idea today to talk about my previous session, it's beyond me to make the decision that, yes, this is a topic that fits my show. This is a topic that I will benefit from bringing up and kind of talking through to the microphone. So I can't, it's very difficult for me to make a decision. I don't know what I'm talking about now. I'm going to leave this in. So making decisions, I've talked about it on the show here before, and it's very difficult. Anything from getting up to go pee, or getting up to start the day, or whether to make bagels, or whether to cut the grass, or read a book, or when to go see my girls, things like that. And God, I don't know where I'm going with this. Maybe I just need to cut this out. Yeah, I don't know. I'm way off the rails here. Maybe I can't decide what to say next, huh? Haha. So yeah, I'm gonna leave this in, and I'm gonna say my farewells right now because I clearly can't pull myself back together. If I'll I'll click pause on the record, and if I can pull something together, I'll be back. But if not, everybody, thank you for listening so very, very much. Everyone, be safe and be well. Thanks.